Introduction. My name is Luis O. Pichardo. I was born in the small town of El Capotillo on August 11th, 1978 in Santo Domingo, the capital of the Dominican Republic. Since the day I was born, I knew that I was gifted. I was different from everyone else. This gift has attracted many different obstacles in my life, but it has also allowed me to grow into the person that I am today. Before you dive into this incredible fiction novel, Washington Heights, The Murder Mamis, let's go back in time. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life story. I want you to understand the type of individual that I am and why I conduct myself in certain ways. I was raised by my grandmother, Lorenza Martinez, who I loved dearly. Unfortunately, she died while I was doing time. I never had the opportunity to say goodbye. She never knew I was incarcerated, nor that I made wrong decisions in my life. She thought I was away at boarding school getting an education. It was so important to her. She always believed I was a good person. Her last words to me were, "Come to Santo Domingo, my son. I want to see you before I die." I always made up excuses for why I couldn't come, rather than being straightforward and telling her that I was locked up in jail. What breaks my heart till this day is that I never had the opportunity to see her again. It was impossible for me to pay my respect to her, to tell her how much I loved her. But I know deep down inside that she is watching over me and protecting me. My grandmother was the most amazing woman in the world. Since I was a young boy, hustling and making money was my thing. The streets gave me that. Not some dumbass school that had me sitting in a wooden chair doing tedious work for 8 hours, not learning anything. The streets raised me. That's where I made my money, not in school. I remembered using that money to buy myself kites and anything I wanted to get, since my grandma could not afford it. The pay and power for manhandling others pleased me, and I was damn good at it too. In the late 80s, my biological mother, Zoila Damaris Jaime, may her soul continue to rest in peace, sent to get me. I was 8 years old at the time. I cannot recall if that made me happy or sad. I was leaving my beautiful country. I did not have a say being so young. I had no choice but to follow instructions and listen to my mother. Upon arriving in New York City at the John F. Kennedy International Airport, my mother took me straight to the Bronx, to 170th Street and Jerome Avenue to be exact. At the time, people recognized this area as Prostitute Central. I did not speak English, nor did I understand the language. Everything around me was so complicated. I could not comprehend how people behaved so poorly and looked so miserable. I did not like anything about it at all. You see, coming from a tropical island where, regardless of the fact that people were poor, they managed to always stay happy. I was living in one of the worst neighborhoods in my country, El Capotillo. But I was happy and free to do as I pleased. I was able to be in the streets all day without worries. To come to a strange place to be locked in a small one-bedroom apartment on the 5th floor with no elevators in the cold-ass winter was extremely hard for me to transition to. I was traumatized by everything, especially my surroundings. I could not take it. I was miserable. I wanted to go back home. At the time, I was frustrated and something needed to change fast. That is when everything in my life blew out of proportion. I felt like a lion in a small cage, stuck inside an apartment without being able to breathe. as if I was suffocating, unable to move or do anything, until destiny brought me together with one of my cousins, Sandy Martinez, aka Ras. He introduced me to the Washington Heights area, Dominicanville. I was so happy to finally be around my people. I quickly saw how the money was flowing there and immediately wanted to be a part of that environment. The hustling game had my mind on getting some new Jordans and the latest beepers, not concentrating on some dumb school. My mother wanted a better future for me. She wanted me to do everything she never had the opportunity of doing, like getting an education. She was constantly registering me to different schools so I could become someone, but I always managed to get kicked out. At IS 232 Alexander Macomb School, trouble always followed me, mostly because of my unique personality and interest in girls. At Mott Hall School, I was registered but never attended. I always cut class. There were many more schools, but I honestly cannot remember the names. I was always at each for less than a week. I always got into trouble quickly or never went to class, so I'd be dropped immediately. But at George Washington High, I managed to stay for a couple of months. But even then, I wasn't there to learn. I was the pack leader of my crew. I remember walking through the hallways, gathering my people from different classrooms and collecting the funds for the smoke and the munchies of the day. I also remember one time at school where I was fighting with someone near a window. I pushed him through the window to get him off me. But the best memory from there was when my beeper went off in one of my classes. The stupid teacher heard it and took it away from me, then gave it to the school principal. I was so mad, I acted on impulse and all hell broke loose. I went outside of the school and got a 4x4 wooden stick and I went to the principal's office. I broke his door and grabbed my beeper from his desk. Once I recovered it, I threw the stick and walked off as if nothing ever happened, checking if I had any missed calls or messages. The joke was on me though. As I walked out of the building, there were 3 police cars waiting to arrest me. My actions got me into a lot of trouble. Without knowing how to read or speak English, my mother unknowingly signed some documents. She was under the impression it authorized them to send me to a boarding school in Albany, New York for my bad behavior, when in reality she gave them permission to take me to Tryon, the most infamous juvenile prison in the state of New York. My experience there was awful. I was locked in a very tiny room where I was constantly abused by officers for no reason whatsoever. There I lasted 1 year. Upon my release, I came back more rebellious than ever from all of the agony and grief that I encountered while in there. After that incident, no other schools wanted to accept me because I had a criminal record which stated that I was a violent person. I did not care at the time. If anything, I was happy because that meant I didn't have to waste my time going to school. I was able to focus on the drug-selling hustle in the streets of Washington Heights. The money was flowing well. I was making that bread and living my life to the fullest. I was even getting along with my mother. In my eyes, she was the best and coolest mother in the entire world. I remember we used to smoke weed together all the time. She was so awesome for getting high with me. I was so happy with everything going on in my life. I was on top of the world, or at least I thought I was. Unfortunately, I was not introduced to the weed hustle, but to the heroin one, where many of the people who bought and consumed my product would overdose and die. When this would happen, I used to drag their bodies down the stairs to the basement to get them out of the way so other buyers would not get scared. I didn't want it to stop them from buying from me. Now that I think about it, I do not understand how I was so stupid. I was selling heroin to those people without considering any consequences. So many people died consuming my product. I didn't care. I was only interested in making a lot of money and fast. Until one day, being too ambitious, I made a wrong move. I got caught red-handed selling heroin to an undercover cop. Big mistake. I got sent to a co-ed juvenile jail, the Spofford Correctional Facility in the Bronx. They housed some of the worst criminals and murderers in the tri-state area. In there, I met two individuals that I would never be able to forget. One was a girl who they called Chop Chop. She had chopped up her mother and her boyfriend because she found them fucking in her bed one day. The other was a girl that was in there because she placed her baby in the microwave just to watch the baby burn to death. You would think that being exposed to all those horrible people with no souls would traumatize me and change me. Nope, not at all. I might not agree with what they did, but I had decided to partake in the life of crime, so I had no right judging. Even though I knew deep down inside I was nothing like the people in my surroundings. When I turned 16 years old, I graduated to Rikers Island. In there, I could not stand the abuse that my Dominican brothers were receiving. The other inmates were assholes. They used to throw the food on the floor for us and tell us we could eat it if we were hungry. All because they could not understand our language or our culture. The guards noticed the abuse and never did anything to any of them. They allowed them to continue tormenting us as if it were their right, as if it was okay. I believe the correctional officers allowed this nonsense to happen for one or two reasons. They either had a family member in there for a crime they committed, or they lived in the same housing project back home with one of them. They had to stay quiet for their protection and family members. I did 2 years of my life there. During my stay, us Dominicans finally got together and we organized ourselves. We were tired of the abuse, so we formed the Unity of Los Trinitarios. As the youngest brother, I was the one responsible for stashing the weapons. That way no officer nor inmate could ever find them. At the age of 18, I was sent to Coxsackie Correctional Facility. This place was a maximum security prison in Greene County, New York, in the town of Coxsackie. They housed some of the inmates who were serving 2 to 3 life sentences for their crime. When they took me to that place, I remember going up there with another inmate who was serving 97 years to life for the conviction of 3 murders. What a shame. He is still there to this day. Being a mentor and advisor to Los Trinitarios and being bilingual, speaking both English and Spanish, I was always involved in fights. The fights triggered many wars which led to many stabbings and much bloodshed. This is the reason I was constantly transferred to many different state correctional facilities in the state of New York. I was never stationed in one prison for a long time. I remember going to the lunch area one day with my Dominican brothers. There were maybe 30 or 40 of us there. We bumped into another crew and we immediately started fighting with no warning signs. A police officer got stabbed in the process. The guy who did the stabbing ran to his cell while they took me, thinking I was the one who did it. While being tortured in a room by some of the officers, one officer decided to check and review the cameras. The others continued to torture me more. The officer reviewing the tapes then realized that I was not the one who did the stabbing. He quickly came and informed the other officers about his findings. They immediately stopped torturing me and left me there while they went to look for the inmate who did it. I saw when they took him to a nearby room where they had me. I listened to his screams. It was horrible. Hours later, the screaming stopped, and I saw the officers pass by me laughing and dirty with blood. I think they killed that guy because no one ever heard from him again. Unfortunately, by me being right in the middle of the rumble, they gave me 3 years in solitary confinement, the box. In there was where I chose to self-educate myself. I decided to change my life around for a better future. My girlfriend at that time, the mother of my oldest son, Elijah, Victoria Colon, left me. She believed that I was going to get 15 more years for the involvement of the stabbing of a correctional officer. She was tired and did not want to hear it anymore. She believed that I would never get out of jail. Being alone in the box made me the man that I am today. I remember one time I was peeing blood for a week. I complained and complained with no response from anyone until my birthday came and the next door boxmate gave me an idea. He told me to lay down on the floor and say that I fell down and bumped my head on the toilet and to say that I could not move my body. The rest of the inmates in the C complex started a big campaign. The squad team came in. There was a total of 6-foot officers, 3 on each side of the door with a doctor in the middle. I remember being asked to get up from the floor. I replied over and over that I could not move. They finally cracked the gate open and they all rushed inside my cell room. The doctor immediately scratched the bottom of my foot to see if I had any circulation. I quickly jumped up from the pain. I was then asked what the problem was. I informed them that I had been in pain for a week, that I was peeing blood, and that I had asked for help numerous times. They did not want to listen to me. They took me to another building strapped in a wheelchair. In there I saw 2 female nurses, a doctor, and 2 huge correctional officers. I was treated horribly by them. The way they stuck the needle in my arm trying to take blood out was very painful. It seemed as if they had to torture me because I was an inmate. I was then given Tylenol codeine and left in a room with nothing, all drugged up for over a week. Once back to my box, I chose to read and write with my time. Otherwise, I was going to go crazy like many inmates in there did. Some drew TV on the wall and acted as if they were watching television. Others played cards and had long conversations with their imaginary friends. I remember this old Dominican guy who used to harass me all the time about his release date. The reality was he had 20 years to life in the box for killing another inmate. I found this out when I tried helping him by contacting a correctional officer and translating the information to them. So many inmates who were doing time in the box got crazy that I am thankful that I still have my sanity. I remember I used to write letters to myself since no one used to write anything to me. I was unknowingly giving myself therapy with those letters. They helped me write 3 books during this time. This one, Washington Heights, being one of them. Due to the change of the Rockefeller law, a law that dealt with the sale and possession of narcotic drugs in the New York State penal law, I was in luck. Under this law, the penalty for selling 2 ounces or more of heroin was a minimum of 15 years to life in prison and a maximum of 25 years to life in prison. Thankfully, due to my good conduct and this law, they released me with 10 years of parole. Since it was hard for me to find any company to hire me with my background, I immediately came up with the idea of working for myself. I opened a little clothing store where my parole officer used to come and check on me uninvited. He would just show up to check on me. He noticed the change in me. They gave me my release papers in a matter of 3 years. It stated that due to my good conduct, I was finally free. What a relief. Finally, I did not have to depend on selling drugs to be able to survive. I was making money legally. I found out that being self-employed was the best way to change my life around positively and have a second chance. I was happy, or at least I thought I was during that time. The alcohol started taking control of me. I was drinking heavy on the weekends and spending all the profit of my business with no self-control. I was unaware of all the negative emotions that had built inside of me. Alcohol was my escape. My girlfriend at the time, Julie Mejia, invited me to her sister's apartment for dinner one day to meet her mother and sisters. The night was going well. We were all getting along, drinking Brugal and Presidente, dancing merengue, salsa, and bachata, eating pasta with shrimp. Good times. Until I blacked out. I do not remember what happened, but was told the next day that I had verbally disrespected her sisters and mother for something they said about my girl. It's still unclear what happened next, but I said horrible things to them. I deeply regret my behavior and actions. Till this day, I am so sorry for what I did and what I said when I was drunk. That is when I realized my problem and decided to stop drinking. One day, Julie informed me about an opportunity, and without planning, we decided to move to South Beach, Florida. She is currently the mother of my two youngest kids, Enzo and Chloe. With a lot of hard work, we opened the hottest hookah lounge on the Strip on 6th and Ocean Drive. We were open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We provided the hookah service, and you were able to bring your own drinks and bottles. Until this day, people talk about that spot and want us to reopen it. We really took care of our guests. There is so much more to my life story that I would like to share, but if I continue now, I will never start my Washington Heights story. With that said, I would love to convey the message to all the young people in or out of school, to juvenile detention centers, prisons, and everyone else. You always have a choice to change and get a second chance in life. You just need to stay positive, work hard, believe in yourself, never stop dreaming, never lie, never steal. When speaking, look at the other person in the eye. Be good to everyone. Be honest, especially with yourself. And most importantly, have faith in God. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to read my book, Washington Heights, The Murder Mamis. I hope you enjoy it. May God bless us all.